Welcome to the official YouTube channel of J.K. Jones, where listeners can enjoy romance audiobooks for free. Please like and subscribe to stay up to date with the latest releases. This audiobook is protected by copyright law. No part of it may be reproduced, distributed, or transmitted in any form or by any means, including recording or electronic methods, without the prior written consent of the author. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, is purely coincidental. To support ongoing content creation, consider joining the Patreon. Every contribution helps keep the stories alive.
Opening. This is an audiobook recording of Claimed by the Wrong Alpha, Shifter Romance Book 2, written by J.K. Jones and narrated by Tosh Stone and Rowan Miller. This is a shifter romance and contains mature themes intended for adult audiences. No part of this audiobook may be reproduced, distributed, or transmitted in any form without the prior written permission of the author. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, is purely coincidental. If you'd like to hear more audiobooks, please like and subscribe. Thank you for respecting the hard work of the author, and we hope you enjoy this story. Prologue. Noah. I was in trouble, again. Cassian and I were neck and neck, and this time I wasn't going to be the one to bend. We were two alphas, and I'd been claimed by the wrong one. He was meant for Mina, but she was nowhere to be found, and I was stuck trying to hold it all together. The fight with the tigers had nearly torn us apart, and now they were circling again, eager for us to fall. Cassian was still fixated on alliances, on the bigger picture, while I was suffocating in the cracks between us. I was done bending. Our pack was falling apart and I could feel the pressure building. The tigers would strike soon, and when they did, there'd be no turning back.
Chapter 6. Cassian. "No," I said to Caspian, who was already pouting. Asterion hadn't even been here 3 weeks before he started thinking about claiming the Spitfire Omega Zorin, one of Asterion's most beloved cows. Yeah, that sounded exactly as weird as it is. I've known Asterion for a long time. For hundreds of years, we've lived in the plains of Ilmora, the sacred homeland of the Horned. The lions roamed not far, across the obsidian dunes of Carethzai, where the wind always howled and blood soaked into the sand like it belonged there.
But, "No buts, Caspian," I snarled. "We have enough problems as it is. But when the time is right, and you and Zorin truly love each other, then we'll see about a proper mating ceremony. The bulls are complicated. He'll still need his alpha. Can you honestly say you'll be okay with sharing him? That you wouldn't mind if Asterion needed to mount him every so often?"
Caspian's brow wrinkled, and I hated that I had to be the one to tell him this. Interspecies mating wasn't uncommon, not frowned upon, but complicated in its own right. I knew my brother, and if Caspian chose Zorin, it was because he loved him.
But could Zorin love Caspian? Especially when the bulls had their own language, their own way of life. Nothing was guaranteed. At least with the wolves of Clan Verethis, things were transparent. But Zorin would always be bound to Asterion, especially when it came to producing pups. I didn't think I could willingly sit by while my brother, second general to the lion clan of Carethzai, was disrespected so thoroughly.
"I don't care about all that stuff," Caspian said, straightening his spine. We were in my designated office space. Noah would be arriving any minute now with Asterion to prepare for war with the tigers of Clan Cernai. Things were reaching their apex, and I wanted to make sure we were ready to fight. Still no word from Mina, but my understanding was she was gearing up to fight against us. The witch never agreed to this, and I know Noah found it hard to believe, but something sinister was at work here, and we have to defend what's ours. Illis and General Askard from the Panther clan of Duskmaw would be here too, along with the foxes of Clan Verin, the leopards of Clan Solari, and finally, Clyde and the stallions of Clan Orind.
There was so much to do and so little time. and I needed Caspian to put his focus into keeping the lions safe and on top, not worrying about some Omega who would have to return to his alpha, even if that alpha was happily mated. Like I said before, complicated didn't even begin to cover it.
I heard Noah before I saw him, the deep timbre of his voice never failing to tickle my insides silly. This morning, he'd been in a foul mood after I mounted him 5 times during the night. He always complained about having weak ankles when I'd bred him so thoroughly. I chuckled, picturing his pouty face this morning. I rose from my seat, ready to greet my mate, and saw Caspian's shoulders slump. "We can talk about it later, I promise." There was a soft knock on the door, and Noah entered, with Asterion right on his heels. The warmth and sun had done wonders for Asterion. When he'd arrived, heavily injured and suffering from wounds the tigers had inflicted, my heart had lurched. Asterion was a dear friend, a kind-hearted bull who loved his herd. When we left, I hadn't considered the effects it would have on him and those we protected. I was glad he'd arrived safely, with a new Matronus to boot.
"Cassian!" Asterion's face lit up. "Causing trouble already?"
I chuckled, wrapping my arm around Noah. "Yup." I turned to kiss him, but Noah turned his face away, squirming out of my grip. He didn't like when I was physically affectionate with him during formal pack meetings, and to be honest, it was starting to annoy me. I wanted to hug my mate, kiss him, shower him with attention, while Noah wanted to be all business. But behind closed doors, he was putty in my hands. I dropped my arm, and I felt him visibly relax. "Okay, let's get started. Ouch!" he yelped when I pinched his ass. He shot me a dirty look and quickly strode over to the desk, as if to shield himself from me. I grinned wickedly, but kept my distance. Asterion chuckled. "How goes our plans?" "Good," Noah answered for me. "General Asgard from the Panther clan of Duskmaw will be arriving shortly, and then the foxes of Clan Varen, the leopards of Clan Solari, and finally, Clyde and the stallions of Clan Orind. However, Clyde said he was running late due to a disturbance on his ranch." I opened my mouth to elaborate on that. Clyde's disturbance was probably just his prized stallion kicking down the barn door again, but Noah raised a finger without looking at me. "And," he continued, as if I weren't standing there, with 500 years of first-hand knowledge, "we'll need to offer Clan Varen an incentive. The foxes are notorious for switching sides mid-battle. They're sly like that." I blinked, slowly. "Oh, are they?" "Thank you for the zoological insight, Professor Noah," I said, folding my arms. Asterion coughed into his fist. Noah ignored me completely. "We'll also need to adjust our tone with General Asgard. The Panthers of Duskmaw don't respond well to direct confrontation." "They're panthers, not toddlers," I muttered under my breath. "They don't need a tone adjustment. They need respect. Asgard and I hunted sand beasts together before you were even born, babe." Caspian's eyes bounced between us like he was watching a tennis match. Asterion had subtly taken a step back. Noah gave me a pointed look. "And yet, the last time you negotiated with Asgard, he stormed off and called you a mane-fluffed egomaniac with the patience of a starving lion." "He was cranky because I beat him at dice," I grumbled. "You bet his war banner," Noah said flatly. "His war banner." "He was losing! What else was I supposed to do? Not raise the stakes?" Caspian groaned and slumped into a chair. Asterion raised a brow and leaned toward him. "Are they always like this?" "Worse," Caspian muttered. "This is them flirting." "Anyway," Noah said loudly, clearly determined to stay on script, "the leopards of Clan Solari will likely demand a private audience." "With me?"
I cut in smugly, because unlike someone in this room, I didn't once suggest their spotted coats were a sign of weak bloodlines. That was scientific curiosity, Noah barked, flustered now. I asked a question. One question! I stepped closer, grinning. You said they looked like diseased jaguars! I was tired. And drunk! That's beside the point! Asterion started laughing. Caspian stood up, muttering something under his breath. Okay, you know what? I'm out. This is above my pay grade and below my sanity threshold. Caspian, wait! Asterion called after him, but he was already gone, tossing his hands in the air, like a man fleeing a burning building. There was a brief silence after the door slammed. I turned to Noah, raising an eyebrow. Well, that went well. He sniffed. Maybe next time you can run the meeting. I was running the meeting until someone decided to stage a coup. Asterion looked between us and said brightly, I'll go check on Caspian before he joins the foxes out of spite. As the door clicked shut behind him, I leaned in close to Noah. You know, for someone who complains about having weak ankles, you sure do stomp around like you own the place. He narrowed his eyes. That's because I do. I grinned. Then you won't mind me showing you later just how much I appreciate your leadership. Noah's ears turned pink. Shut up. Never! I started walking toward him, slow and deliberate, like a predator closing in on prey. Noah immediately backed up, still blushing, eyes darting toward the door like he was considering making a break for it. You interrupted me, I warned, voice low and full of heat. He flushed deeper, that beautiful stubborn pink spreading all the way up his neck. I told you it was my meeting. I set it up. I growled when he kept backing away, bumping into the edge of the desk. His hands braced behind him, and I could see the flicker of panic and anticipation in his eyes. You set it up, I echoed, stalking closer. But I was speaking, and the next time you cut me off in front of the others, mate or not, I'll remind you exactly who leads this pack. His breath hitched, and I could smell the spike of his arousal. He could pretend to be all business in the war room, but his body always gave him away. I'm not some little Omega to roll over and let you... I leaned in close, brushing my lips against his ear. No, you're my mate, and that comes with consequences. He made a choked noise, gripping the edge of the desk, like it might save him from melting into the floor. I'll file a complaint, he whispered. With who? I smirked, placing my hand beside his head and effectively caging him in. Your ankles? You're such an ass, he hissed. I let my nose graze his jaw. But you like this ass. He looked like he was about to say something snarky, but the door creaked open again, and Asterion reappeared, dragging Caspian in behind him like a reluctant cub. I straightened, and Noah practically dove for the far end of the desk, pretending to read over a stack of maps like he hadn't just been cornered and teased into submission. Caspian took one look at the situation and muttered, Unbelievable. I was gone 2 minutes. Asterion just looked amused. Can we continue the meeting? Asterion just looked amused. Can we continue the meeting? Noah nodded, and I moved to stand beside him, not wanting to be too far away from my mate. On a more serious note, we're not prepared. Asterion's voice rang through the office, and I realized, with a cold sinking feeling, that he was right. We weren't prepared. The wolves, although noble, were few in number. General Askard from the Panther clan of Duskmaw were mighty but few. Then the foxes of Clan Verin switched sides depending on their moods. The leopards of Clan Solari were small, and the stallions of Clan Orinde. Fierce, yes, but almost useless against claws and teeth. "He's right," Caspian said. "We are outnumbered."
The tigers were still one of the largest clans, and if they decided to attack, we'd be easily overrun. "There is another way, if you're willing to allow shifters to fight in their human forms." "No way," Noah said immediately. "They'd be decimated."
"Not necessarily," Asterion replied, his voice calm. "My mate, before he could shift, fought off half a dozen or so tigers just in his human form."
Everyone balked at that, including myself. "How?" Caspian demanded.
"Fire?"
"Fire?"
I crossed my arms over my chest, deep in thought. Fire was dangerous for obvious reasons, but I was curious to see where Asterion was going with this. "If it can be contained, it can be a reckoning," Asterion continued. "No," Noah said, shaking his head. "No way. It would decimate the noble wolf pack, just like it did Velmora. I won't allow everything we've built to be wasted away just to destroy the tigers. If we destroy them, but destroy ourselves, then what's the point?"
"Yeah, I'm with Noah on this one," Caspian replied. "We can't control it."
"We can," Asterion said. He was always so calm, so regal. "If we dig fire pits, set traps, we can outsmart the tigers without too much bloodshed."
He was right, but Noah was already shaking his head. "No, it would destroy our home, the tranquility." "If I may," Asterion cut in. "You are a young wolf, but Cassian and I have seen many wars. There will be casualties, there will be sacrifices, there will be destruction. But what matters is the people, the pack. As long as we are alive, we can rebuild."
"I agree," I said. "This is what we should do."
"I said no."
My entire body stiffened, like I'd been stabbed with a shard of ice. Noah's eyes were glowing yellow, blazing with a fury I hadn't seen since the day we mated. With 2 other alphas in the room, my hackles were already rising, gearing up for a fight, but I forced myself to calm down. It wasn't a challenge. Noah didn't like the ideas presented to him. "I see," Asterion said graciously. "Very well. We can revisit this later, if you'll excuse me."
I clenched my jaw as he and Caspian left. I knew Asterion. He wasn't one for big fights or confrontation. He would relent, but I knew Noah's reaction had deeply offended the bull.
"What the hell's gotten into you?" I snapped at Noah. "It was a good idea." "To destroy my entire home with fire? Oh yeah, great plan," Noah hissed.
"He wasn't saying that. We can outsmart the tigers. They won't be expecting us in human form."
"Just let me handle it," Noah snapped. "I'll consult the council and the pack, then we'll make the right call."
There it was again, that subtle exclusion. "We'll make the call," meaning him and the wolves. I wasn't a fool. I knew he'd already had secret meetings, held discussions behind closed doors where my voice wasn't even considered. He'd return with decisions already made, ready to inform me, not include me. It was unsettling, unnerving, and more than that, it was insulting.
My temper clawed up my throat, hot and sharp, demanding release. "So what?" I said tightly. "My opinion doesn't matter?" "I didn't say that," Noah hissed. "Why are you always putting words in my mouth?" "Because I'm your mate," I barked. "And you always do things separately. Always. You leave me out. Make decisions with your pack, your council, your little war room, and then I get told like a foot soldier." "Just because you're my mate doesn't mean you get to rule," he bit out, eyes flashing.
I took a step back like I'd been struck. For a second, the breath left my lungs.
He may as well have clawed open my chest.
Rule. He thought this was about power. He didn't understand. He never understood. For a lion, pride wasn't just a word. It was our family, our blood, our identity. We didn't keep secrets from each other. We didn't shut each other out and then call it love. In my pride, no one was left behind. Everyone's voice was heard. And my mate, had just shoved me out of the circle I thought we shared.
You think I want to rule you? I said, voice low and bitter. I wanted to stand beside you, Noah. Not behind, not beneath. Beside. But I guess lions don't get a seat at the wolf table unless we stay quiet and nod.
Noah's expression faltered, just for a second. His mouth opened, but whatever he wanted to say died in his throat. I turned away before I said something I couldn't take back, my heart pounding behind my ribs like a caged beast. My claws itched, but it wasn't from rage. It was from hurt, and maybe something worse. Doubt.
Don't! I'm sorry! Noah hurried around the desk and grabbed my bicep, stopping me from leaving. He pressed his forehead to my shoulder, breathing hard. Sorry, I've been the leader for so long, after my parents died. Mina was all I had left, and now I have you and I'm sorry. I took a fortifying breath, hating how much his words had hurt me. I know. I'm not against you, Noah. I'm not trying to rule over you. Noah pressed skin to my skin, and it immediately sparked. I know. I took his wrist and sat down in the plush large chair, taking Noah into my lap. Noah wrapped his arms around my neck and sighed. I ran my hand over his back, down his spine, resting on his firm butt. We should, he shivered, talk about what to do next. But I was no longer interested in that, too busy sucking a bruise into the hollow of Noah's throat. Was it just me, or was my mate gaining weight? His thighs were still firm, but squishy. He ate heartily at breakfast and dinner, his abs somewhat softening, but it was more than what he looked like. Content. That was the word. And he smelled like mine. Wait, Cassian, he gasped, pushing at my chest. We need to stop distracting me. I haven't even started, honey lips, I purred. See, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Noah huffed and slapped my hand away, the one that was inching around his shorts. I'm not your honey, anything. I'm an alpha, a fierce wolf, and... I tuned the rest of it out. That's a lovely story, and I can't wait to hear the end of it. Noah squirmed in my lap, trying half-heartedly to keep me at bay, while his breath came in fast, shallow bursts. I tilted his chin up, brushing my lips over his with aching slowness, feeling the way his body trembled under mine. His scent had changed. Not dramatically, just enough that my lion instinct stirred. Warmer, softer, sweeter, like sunlight mixed with something ripe and golden. His hips, which had always been lean and taut, had just the faintest new curve. His chest was still firm beneath my palms, but fuller, and when my fingers slipped down to his waist, I pinched the beginnings of a tiny roll, just above his shorts. Noah groaned. Ugh, I knew it. I raised an eyebrow. Knew what? I don't know. I do push-ups every day, and no matter what, I keep gaining weight. The annoyance in his voice only made it hotter. This beautiful, powerful alpha melting in my lap, skin flushed, breath heavy, body changing in ways that made something deep in my core stir. You're perfect, I murmured, dragging my mouth along his jaw. You smell like home.
You're just saying that because my thighs are soft enough to nap on.
I would nap on them, happily.
He snorted, then gasped when my teeth grazed his collarbone. His fingers tightened on my shoulders as my hands roamed greedily, pulling him flush against me. My tongue flicked over the bruise I'd left, and Noah's head lolled back, his hair sticking to the sweat gathering at his nape.
I swear, he panted, if you distract me one more time.
You'll what? I rumbled, grinding my hips up.
Noah whimpered. I bit down on the edge of his throat, gentle but possessive, desire flaring hotter than ever. And then, knock, knock, knock. The door creaked open. Hey! Jarek called, oblivious, cheerful, and 100% dead to me. The council is ready! He froze as Noah yelped and flung himself upright, his face a bright shade of crimson. I didn't even bother moving, just narrowed my eyes at the intruder.
Jarek blinked. Oh. Should I? Yes, Noah barked, scrambling off my lap and nearly tripping over the chair. Close the damn door, Jarek! The door slammed shut so fast it rattled in its frame. I leaned back, smirking. Where were we? Noah glared at me, his face burning. Don't. I reached for him again anyway. Just one more kiss. He looked tempted. Very tempted. Oh, 10 seconds, he muttered, climbing right back into my lap. Then we're going to that meeting. I kissed him, like I planned to make every one of those seconds count, and maybe just a few more.
Chapter 7. Noah. How many acres did you say? I asked, my stomach shrinking with every word. 1 alpha, Jarek said, glancing down at the clipboard like it might offer mercy. And, counting, about 62 acres, for just the 1 cow. I briefly closed my eyes as if to stop the pounding in my head from starting. 62. 62 acres. That was nearly the size of a small village, for 1 Spitfire Omega cow who couldn't even stay in his pen without biting the fence. Which one is this again? Jarek had the audacity to blush and look away. Orion. The one with the small pup, Misha? I asked, even though I already knew. So, why can't Orion stay in his pen? Jarek's flush deepened and he sputtered. He's just rowdy, you see, and you've been seeing each other secretly, am I right? I cut in, though my temper was rising. Jesus Christ, Jarek. I'm sorry, Alpha. He's so cute and... Mated to Asterion. His Alpha, I hissed. Why is this so complicated? He just had his pup, for Christ's sake. Orion is a cow, and Asterion is his bull. You cannot possibly have a future with him. Jarek's back straightened immediately, and I knew I had crossed a line. It wasn't up to me whether or not they had a future, and as his alpha, I shouldn't discourage him from following his heart. But things were far too complicated right now. How could I honestly encourage him to date Orion when the tigers could attack at any moment? With all due respect, Alpha, Jarek said, voice tight and hard. It's none of your business who the hell I date. Orion is beautiful and kind. I will only seek your permission when I choose to mate him, not before. I rubbed my forehead. Yes. I'm sorry, Jarek. I'm just under a lot of stress. I slumped down in my chair, massaging my temples. That was out of line. It's fine, he clipped. The council is ready for us now. I stood up, but my knees felt weak the second I took a step forward. I followed Jarek out of the room, guilt gnawing at me as I noticed how he kept his distance. Damn it. I'd really crossed a line with him. I shouldn't have questioned his relationship with Orion. I could tell he was falling fast for the cute Omega, but still, Orion was tied to Asterion, too tied up for me to take their relationship seriously. And I knew Caspian was thinking the same of his brother and Zorin. The herd was a harem, complicated, loyal, and bound in ways wolves and lions barely understood. Even if Orion chose Jarek, he would still be bound to the herd. And what about their pups? Would Jarek consider Misha his own? Would he mind Orion occasionally being mounted by Asterion? I couldn't wish that for him. Not if he was expecting something neat and monogamous. A wave of nausea washed over me, sharp and sudden, but I clenched my jaw and kept walking. It had been happening more and more these days. Waves of queasiness at the worst times, usually right after I'd overstuffed myself with something greasy or sweet or both. My stomach was practically in knots from the stress of everything, and yet somehow I was always hungry, ravenous. I had devoured 6 boiled eggs, half a roasted chicken, and a loaf of honey bread this morning, then growled at a pack omega who'd reached for the last pastry like a starved beast. Ridiculous. And I seriously needed to talk to Deacon about getting back into training. I'd been slacking for weeks now, and it was starting to show. My pants fit weird, my chest felt tight, and yesterday I nearly cried when I saw a doe curled up with her fawn near the watering hole. I shook my head, trying to dislodge the growing list of concerning behaviors. Clearly, I was going soft. Maybe it was battle nerves. Or maybe, just maybe, I was dying of some rare, incurable illness, where the only symptoms were mood swings, food cravings, and inexplicable crying over small woodland creatures. Whatever it was, I'd figure it out later, preferably after a nap. And maybe a cinnamon roll, or 3. We stepped into the hidden chamber beneath the den, a hollow carved deep into the roots of the mountain, lit by hundreds of flickering candles. The stone walls shimmered with silver glyphs, etched by claw and blood from generations past. The scent of herbs, old parchment, and sacred oils clung thick to the air, almost enough to mask the burn in my stomach. Roderick stood at the centre, his long grey robe sweeping the ground like mist, the hood pulled low over his face. He bowed, the wide sleeves of his robe falling open to reveal the moon sigil branded over his forearm. "Alpha Noah," he said, voice as deep as a burial bell. "You honour us." Since Mina had given up her right, I had taken up the mantle of Moonvale heiress, not a title traditionally meant for someone like me, much less an alpha. But desperate times didn't care for tradition. The ritual had been simple in action but heavy in meaning. The Moonvale heiress ritual had always been passed from mother to daughter, generation after generation, a sacred line preserved through female Omega heirs of the noble wolf pack. It was believed that only those who carried the soft weight of both creation and sacrifice in their spirit could channel the Moonvale's blessing. But when Mina abdicated, too heartbroken after her mate's death, too tired of being the symbol everyone leaned on, there was no daughter to follow. Only me. The ritual took place on the thinnest night of the lunar calendar, when the moon hung lowest in the sky and glowed pale as bone. I'd stood in a pool of glacial water, naked from the waist up, wrists cut shallow to mark the blood offering. Roderick had drawn the crescent sigil over my chest with ash and milk thistle, while a circle of elders chanted the words that bound the veil to my soul. I remembered the searing heat when the energy struck me, like my bones were being rewritten in silver. My heart had stopped, then restarted. When I opened my eyes, I could see the thread of every pack member's fate tugging softly through the veil. Their grief, their love, their hope. It changed me. And it cost me something too. Now, as I stepped fully into the chamber, all eyes turned to me, the unwanted alpha chosen by the moon. Roderick raised his hands. "Shall we begin?" "Yes," I said, taking a seat at the front on the makeshift throne. "Sorry for gathering everyone here last minute. But it was urgent. The packs are mobilizing, but I want to make sure we stay together as much as possible." Roderick and a few of the other councilmen exchanged glances, far too amused for my liking. "Alpha, what do you mean?" Roderick asked, voice mild, his milky eyes blinking slowly. "I mean, so that we are not overrun." "Overrun," he repeated, like I'd just spoken in some lost dialect. Why was everyone purposefully not understanding me? I straightened, irritation prickling down my spine like 1,000 tiny claws. Yes, I said tightly. We are being invaded. Constantly. They want our resources, our supplies. What the hell is so funny? I barked, eyes flashing. A few council members snorted. One of them actually covered his mouth with his sleeve to hide a chuckle. My temper flared hotter than wildfire. Alpha, you seem agitated, Roderick said carefully, clearly trying not to laugh. Perhaps a warm bath might soothe your nerves, or maybe have your mate rub your, swollen feet. My feet are fine, I snapped. Roderick gave me a slow, knowing look. Of course, perfectly dainty and unswollen. Why aren't you all taking this seriously? I demanded. We are being invaded. The tigers are coming and clearly someone's nesting instincts have kicked in, murmured Councilwoman Bryner to her neighbour, who snickered into his sleeve. What was that? I snapped. Oh, nothing, Roderick said too quickly. Only that perhaps all this stress isn't good for the delicate state of things. What delicate state? I narrowed my eyes. There was a beat of silence. Everyone very pointedly looked anywhere but at me. Roderick cleared his throat. Absolutely nothing, Alpha. We hear you. We honour you. Please do go on about the invading armies. We're riveted. I rubbed my forehead and muttered, Gods help me. I'm surrounded by idiots. Yes, Roderick said solemnly, and soon you'll be surrounded by diapers if we're correct. What? Nothing. They all chimed, not quite fast enough. A snarl tore out of me, sharp and guttural, silencing the room at once. When I had control again, I swept my gaze across each of them, daring anyone to speak out of turn. War is upon us, I said coldly. Must I stress the importance of unity? The clans are coming, some already here, and when they do, we must be ready. We are the noble wolf pack. I will not allow our way of life to be diluted, twisted, or intermingled beyond recognition. Alpha, Roderick said, his tone careful. Forgive me, but perhaps it is time. Perhaps it already has. What? I snapped, narrowing my eyes. Alpha, he said gently, as if he were tiptoeing through fire. You've been mated to Cassian for 5 moons now, and while the mating ceremony was unconventional, it was completed. Cassian of the Solar Flare clan is now your mate, your alpha. And by ancient law, the alpha of an alpha is the pack's leader, whether we like it or not. Perhaps it is time we learn to submit to him as well. The clans are restless. Unity must begin with us. My jaw clenched, rage prickling behind my eyes. So what are you saying? I bit out. That I should relinquish my title to him? Hand over my birthright? That we should support this grotesque misalliance because of a few heat-drunk mistakes? Our mating wasn't political. It was pheromonal. A biological accident. Roderick, frustratingly calm, met my glare. And yet, your body has accepted his bite. Among other things, a councilwoman muttered with a smirk, and I turned to glare at her with such intensity she actually flinched, her laughter dying in her throat. If I had fire magic, she would have been a pile of ash. That's beside the point, I barked. The tigers will be upon us. Are we ready? Yes, Alpha, Jarek answered crisply. We've all the provisions we need to launch a full-scale attack. Excellent. I'll lead them myself, I said, rising. Roderick sputtered, followed by a chorus of shocked inhales. Alpha, are you sure you should... I mean, in your condition... I'm better than I've ever felt, I said with a sharp grin. That'll be all. Roderick, councilman. I gave a curt nod and strode from the den, leaving them to murmur like nervous hens. Roderick scrambled after me, his pale eyes wide with panic. Alpha! Please, I must insist you take it easy. You're in a delicate cycle. There's nothing delicate about me, I assure you, I said, breezing through the hall. The main house was bustling, crammed with new arrivals. The air was thick with unfamiliar scents, too many bodies pressed too close, voices bouncing off stone and timber. It made my skin crawl. I longed for silence. A cool, empty room. I stopped cold. Jarek nearly ploughed into me. I blinked. My chest tightened. I was choking on a word I hadn't even thought about since I was a pup. Nest. I wanted to build a nest. What the hell was wrong with me? Alpha? Jarek asked, his voice tight with concern. Roderick stared at me like I'd just grown a second head. I'm fine. I took a deep breath. But the air was too thick, too cloying with the sense of too many wolves and too many strangers. My nose wrinkled. When had everything started smelling so wrong? I waved them off, straightening. It's nothing. The hallway reeks, that's all. Like wet fur and bad decisions. Roderick's lips thinned. Jarek glanced at him nervously. You stopped breathing like you'd seen a ghost, Roderick said, stepping closer. Are you sure you're all right? I said I'm fine, I snapped, though the edge in my voice came out off. Was that a wobble? I cleared my throat and pressed my hand low against my abdomen, trying to ignore the unsettling flutter deep in my gut. Not pain exactly, just a weird squirming discomfort. Like my body was trying to tell me something and I wasn't ready to listen. I'll retire now, I said. Excuse me. Roderick looked like he wanted to say something, but slammed his mouth shut so hard I heard his molars clack. I made it to my bedroom, locked the door behind me, and the second my head hit the pillow. Outside. Gone. Dead to the world. When I woke, strong hands were rubbing my feet, working slow circles into my sore arches. I groaned, the sweet smell of lavender curling around my senses like a warm blanket. I cracked an eye open. Cassian knelt at the foot of the bed, his body slick with oil, brown hair falling into his eyes, chest bare and gleaming. A deep rumble of amusement vibrated from his chest. Good evening, Sleeping Beauty. What time is it? I mumbled, still groggy. After 6, Cassian chuckled. You slept the whole day. Impossible. I tried to sit up, but a wave of nausea nearly sent me crashing back into the mattress. No, I missed dinner and... I brought it for you, don't worry, sweetheart, he said gently, still rubbing my feet like I was royalty in a fever dream. He reached over to the table and pulled a tray closer. I blinked. It wasn't a tray, it was a banquet. There was an entire roasted chicken. Just for me. Mashed potatoes piled like they were trying to breach the heavens. A mountain of garlic butter rolls stacked so high they needed scaffolding. Something with gravy, something else smothered in cheese and... Was that a chocolate tart? 2. My stomach growled so loudly I thought it echoed. Trying to feed an army? I asked, voice hoarse with disbelief. Just one very demanding alpha with shifting moods and unpredictable cravings, Cassian said sweetly, kissing my ankle. I do not have cravings, I snapped. You threatened to exile a kitchen boy for serving the wrong kind of jam. It was blackberry, I growled. I hate blackberry. Cassian's eyes sparkled as he handed me a fork. Eat, before you start a civil war over pudding. I ate like a starved beast, shoveling food into my mouth while Cassian rubbed my feet. It felt so good my eyes nearly rolled back in my head. If the apocalypse came right then, I'd die happy, stuffed and foot-pampered. Cassian chuckled as I groaned through a bite of mashed potatoes, then took the tray away once I'd demolished the battlefield of carbs and cheese. I let my head fall back with a sigh, my eyes fluttering closed. Peace. Finally. And then... The foot-rubbing stopped. I frowned. The bed dipped. I opened one eye, then both, because holy hell. Cassian was hovering over me, his mouth curled into a dopey, affectionate smile. His long brown hair framed his face in soft waves, making him look like a painting, if paintings could also make your pulse spike. His strong jaw, clefted chin, that stupidly kissable mouth. It was all doing things to me. In the months we'd been mated, I'd never told him how attractive he was. Never told him how he made my heart flutter. How some days I could barely breathe if he wasn't beside me. But people beside me always left. They died, just like my parents. I could never let him get too close. Being close to me was dangerous. You smell amazing, Cassian murmured, rubbing his hands down my arms. Like mine, but something else. Something sweeter. I was too tired to overthink it, but he wasn't wrong. I did smell different lately, and I couldn't put my finger on it. I leaned up and kissed him softly on the lips. Cassian moaned, nibbling on my lower lip like he wanted to keep it. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Tired," I admitted. "I don't know what's come over me, The thing with the tigers, I'm afraid we'll lose our way of life. Resources are stretched too thin." Cassian cupped my face, gently brushing my blonde hair from my brow. "You've been running yourself ragged. Why don't you let me take care of a few things?" I stiffened immediately. "No, I'm fine. Noah, I'm your alpha." "And I'm yours," I snapped. "So what? You think I can't handle things? That I'm weak? Just because you top all the time doesn't mean you get to control me." Cassian reeled back, his jaw clenched. "Jesus, what the hell's gotten into you? I say one thing and you're ready to bite my head off. I just want to help." "I don't need your help," I said, fierce as wildfire. "Whatever," Cassian grunted. He moved to get off the bed. My heart lurched. "No, no, no." I grabbed his wrist. He froze. So did I. Slowly, Cassian turned to face me, his yellow eyes burning. He didn't say anything, just watched me, waiting. And I hated this. Hated how I always pushed him away, only to drag him back the second he looked like he might leave. He saw it. Felt it. That sharp tug between us neither of us could sever. Cassian crawled back over me, pressing me gently into the mattress. His lips crashed into mine, harder this time. No hesitation. I threw my arms around his neck, pulling him down like a lifeline. The ache in my chest eased, just a little. I hated feeling inferior. I never asked for help, never needed it. I was stubborn, through and through. But Cassian, he made me want to ask, made me want to relent. And that was the most dangerous thing of all.
Chapter 8. Cassian. Noah's been acting strange. My eyes narrowed as I watched my mate fluff his pillow for the third time, then get up, toss it on the ground with a growl, and grab mine instead. He sniffed it, frowned, then shoved it into the growing mess he'd made in the middle of the floor, right on top of 2 blankets, a hoodie, and what looked like my missing gym shorts. I watched in baffled silence as he crouched, rearranged the pile, stood back, shook his head, and then did this awkward little shimmy that looked like a dance, but with the tragic energy of a confused chicken trying to tap dance. He paused, hands on hips, assessing his work like he was trying to summon divine inspiration from a lumpy pile of fabric. Then it hit me. My nostrils flared. Is he nesting? The word lodged itself in my brain like a lightning bolt. Noah, my alpha mate, who once said, "Throw pillows were a government scam," was making a nest. Curious, I took a cautious step forward. "Noah!" He turned to face me, hair wild and eyes wilder. "Don't touch the pile!" I froze. He'd bared his teeth. Bared his teeth. Hands up, I took a step back. "Okay, love. Easy." At the word love, Noah's nostrils twitched, and he stiffened like I'd slapped him with a bouquet of emotions he wasn't ready for. His ears turned pink, followed quickly by his cheeks. We hadn't said it yet, those words. Not out loud, but I'd already fallen. Hard. He spun away from me like a flustered tornado and dropped to his knees,
muttering, "Something's wrong with the layout. It needs, balance." He yanked another blanket off the bed and tucked it under the hoodie, then flopped on top of the whole thing, like a starfish in distress.
I bit my tongue, watching as he scooted around until he was just right, arms folded tightly over his chest.
"Are you okay?" "I'm fine," he mumbled. "The floor just felt better, like it made sense."
Right, because floors are famous for their emotional support. He groaned, dragging a pillow over his face. "Don't analyze me." I sat beside him, careful not to breach the sacred perimeter of the pile. "I'm not, just observing. You seem a little... I don't know."
"Insane." "Cozy," I said gently. "Very domesticated grizzly bear."
He snorted, still hiding under the pillow. "I don't know what this is. It just felt good. I want everything close. Smells right. Feels right."
My heart stuttered a little. I glanced down at the pile again. My scent was all over it.
"You're nesting," I said under my breath. "What?" "Nothing," I said quickly, trying to hide my smile. "Nothing at all." Noah peeked out at me, suspicious. "What?"
I leaned over, pressing a kiss to his cheek. "Just love your weird little floor kingdom, that's all."
He grumbled something unintelligible and buried his face in my pillow.
"Yup, totally nesting."
And completely, accidentally, mine.
Arousal burned within me watching him. Noah, oblivious and grumpy in his pile of blankets, had no idea how utterly edible he looked, all flushed cheeks and possessive snarling. I scented the air again. There it was, thicker, sweeter now, like warm milk laced with honey and temptation. I swore my pupils dilated on instinct, and Noah had no clue. I slid to the floor, movement slow, unthreatening, predatory.
He cut his eyes at me, narrowing them into dangerous slits. I grinned.
"Baby! Don't! No!"
"Come on," I purred, dragging one finger along the swell of his bicep, like I was tracing the outline of my next mistake.
Noah shivered.
"Gotcha. I am but a lonely lion," I murmured theatrically, pressing a hand to my chest. "A lion with needs.
Stop it!" he hissed, backing further into his pile, like I was some sexy threat and not the man he shared the toothbrush with. "The Panthers are coming tomorrow. Asterion wants to have a meeting first thing, and it would be nice if I could walk straight without..."
Oh. Noah's protest died in a shudder when I leaned in and kissed the back of his neck. Just a soft brush of lips at first, then again, firmer. His breath caught, came out in short, sharp gasps when I pressed him back against me, hands winding around his waist, dragging him closer until he was flush against my chest. "Why do you always do this when I'm vulnerable?" he panted, back arching slightly.
"Because your vulnerability is adorable," I whispered against his skin. I kissed lower, licked the salty kiss of his nape, tasted that intoxicating scent straight off his flushed skin. "And you're nesting, baby. You literally made a cuddle trap." "I did not make a cuddle trap," he groaned, breath hitching again when my hands roamed under his shirt. "This was a tactical pile." "Uh-huh, for tactical snuggles." "I hate you," he gasped, though he was already tilting his head to give me better access.
"No, you don't," I said, smiling against his skin. "Okay, but I need to walk tomorrow. No promises, I murmured, letting my teeth graze just enough to make him whimper. The pile shifted, blankets slipping as we tangled into it. Somewhere, his hoodie sacrificed itself to gravity, but Noah didn't notice. Not when I was kissing him, like he was my favorite dessert.
Which frankly he was.
Nest or no nest, Noah was mine. And tomorrow's Panther meeting?
Well, they just have to accept a slightly wobbly alpha.
I kept kissing him, unable to stop myself, unable to think straight, with the way his scent was driving me mad. Warm and thick and honey sweet. Every brush of my lips against his neck made him shudder, and every sound that left his mouth made heat coil low in my belly. Then my hand slipped under his shirt again, and I froze. His stomach was softer than I remembered, rounder. Not in a bad way, no. It was perfect, but it startled me. I skimmed lower, tracing the slight swell with my fingertips, and my breath hitched. His hips, too, just a little wider, and when he rolled under me with a frustrated growl, I felt the plush weight of his ass settle against my thighs, and my world tilted sideways. Jesus, Noah was.
My heart was hammering. Adrenaline and want tangled up with a knot of something tighter in my throat. Excitement and fear. Mostly fear. Because Noah was an alpha.
He had always been an alpha. That had never changed. He hated labels, but he never denied it. We'd fought side by side, lived as equals, wrestled and rutted like equals. But now he was nesting, glowing, scenting sweet. I needed answers. I needed to ask. But right now, I just needed him. Noah let out a low moan and twisted in the nest, grabbing my shirt and dragging me down, mouth claiming mine in a hot, bruising kiss that left no space between us. His tongue pushed past my lips, needy and slick, and I groaned into it, dazed and breathless. He rolled his hips, grinding up against me, rutting with such filthy purpose it sent sparks shooting through my spine.
I broke the kiss, panting, only for him to chase it. His lips on my jaw, my neck, biting softly like he couldn't get enough.
"Noah!" I gasped. He answered with a moan, deep and desperate, his fingers tugging at my waistband, the nest shifting beneath us, cradling our bodies like it had been made for this.
It had. He had. And then he was under me, writhing in the blankets, hips bucking up, dragging me into a rhythm neither of us could fight. My hands clenched at his waist, rounder, softer, different, and I moaned too, unable to stop it. The slick sounds of our bodies meeting filled the room, Noah's scent saturating the air, addictive and confusing and beautiful. I pressed my forehead to his, dazed. "Noah," I whispered, voice trembling. "What's happening to you?" He blinked up at me, lips kiss-swollen, chest rising and falling fast. He didn't answer, but the look in his eyes, terrified, tender, and full of need. Clothes disappeared between frantic kisses and fumbling hands, shirts tugged over heads, pants shoved down, tossed aside, forgotten. The world narrowed to the heat of his skin against mine, the thick, heady scent of him flooding my senses until I could barely think, barely breathe. Noah lay back on the nest, glorious and flushed, chest rising with ragged breaths. Sweat clung to his skin, making him gleam in the low light, like something sacred, something wild and just barely in control. His blonde hair clung damply to his forehead, tangled and messy,
And his eyes, God, his eyes were wide and blown black with need, lips parted around shaky exhales. He looked up at me, like I was the only thing anchoring him to earth. After it was over, we lay like that, tied and trembling. His fingers tangled in my hair, my arms wrapped tight around his waist. The nest cradled us, warm and soft, and for the first time in what felt like forever, everything felt right.
Noah nuzzled my temple, voice raw. So,
I smiled, breathless. Yeah.
Still think this isn't a nest? I chuckled, tightening my hold. Shut up and kiss me, pretty boy.
And he did. I woke in the middle of the night, my throat tight with fear. I had dreamed we fought Vindictus, and Noah was... I gulped, not daring to utter the word.
When we fought Joran, things had been dire, and luckily I arrived just in time, but one tiger against a wolf. It was too horrifying to think about. I knew Vindictus would be out for blood. Asterion had escaped his clutches, and now Noah had killed his brother. The tigers wouldn't rest until we were all brought to ruin. I gently peeled away from Noah, sitting at the edge of the bed. I ran a hand through my hair. Noah wouldn't accept this. We both knew it. This would be the war of the century. And if I forced him to sit it out, if I, as his alpha, commanded him to, he would never forgive me. It didn't matter if it was for the pup.
Noah was a proud wolf, forged in the fires of the noble wolf pack. People would expect him to lead.
But at what cost?
We never talked about pups. I honestly always assumed Noah would take another lover, another wolf from his pack, an omega, and breed him or her, not carry the pup himself. Then again, who could have expected two alphas to mate? I stood, body drenched in sweat. I needed to shift. I closed the door behind me and broke into a jog, heading straight for the woods. My feet carried me into the forest until I exploded into a massive lion, taking off into the trees, my paws tearing up trunks of grass and dirt. The moon lit the canopy above me in silver streaks. Shadows scattered as I tore through the forest. My breath came in great plumes, legs pumping harder, needing the run, the release, the space to think, to feel, without being crushed beneath it. I didn't know how long I ran, only that the thunder of my paws gradually slowed as something shifted in the air. Magic, old and cold. I skidded to a halt, claws gouging the earth, ears twitching. Up ahead, nestled at the base of a hill, was a small den, barely more than an opening in the ground flanked by twisted roots, and standing just outside it, bathed in the eerie glow of moonlight, was Roderick. His pale robes fluttered slightly in the wind, untouched by dirt or blood or time. Strange runes shimmered across his skin, glowing faintly like embers buried under ash. His eyes, normally dark and sharp, were as pale as chalk, distant and unblinking. He saw me, saw through me. Roderick gave a single nod of his head and turned without a word, walking slowly toward the edge of a nearby cliff. His movements were dreamlike, each step measured, deliberate, as though he were walking through water only he could feel. I crouched low, hackles raised as I padded after him, my lion form nearly silent despite my size. The tension in my shoulders refused to ease. Something was off. The wind didn't blow here. The forest held its breath. Roderick stopped at the cliff's edge. He stared out over the expanse below, where moonlight turned the valley into a patchwork of silver mist and black rock.
but his eyes weren't seeing it. Not truly. He was gazing far beyond it, as if the horizon itself whispered to him things I couldn't hear. Without turning, he spoke, voice quiet. "You felt it, didn't you?" My body stilled behind him, breath fogging in the cold. "The first ripple," he murmured. The moment the pop quickened. My chest clenched. Roderick finally turned to look at me. "And you still don't understand what Noah is, what this means." I shifted, my lion form collapsing into my human body in a rush of pain and light. Barefoot and breathless, I stood before him, still sweating from the run, still shaken from the dream. "I understand that it's dangerous," I said, "that we're not ready." Roderick's gaze softened, though the runes still pulsed like living veins of light across his skin. "No one's ready," he said, "but the stars don't wait, and neither will Vindictus." "What do we do?" I begged. "Stop Noah from going against himself!" I froze, my heart hammered. "You mean—" "Yes, he won't like it. Neither will you. But when two alphas are involved, naturally one must be dominant and the other submissive. Noah will not relent easily. He will fight. He will scheme. This is his worst fear manifesting before his eyes." "How do you know?" Roderick smiled, thin and painful. "I know. His parents died. Mina was all he had left, but now she isn't. He has you. He has the pack. He has life. Sooner or later he will realize that being hard and being soft aren't enemies." Roderick finished gently. "They are both survival. One protects the body, the other protects the heart, and Noah has never learned the difference." I swallowed, the weight of it all sinking into my bones. "The question is, does the lion have what it takes to tame the wolf?" Roderick whispered, but it carried the weight of ages. I looked at him, the forest quiet around us, and thought about what that meant. To tame a wolf was not to break it. That much I understood. Wolves were proud, fierce, and wild. To tame one was to earn its trust, its loyalty, its heart. It required patience, strength, and a kind of fierce gentleness. Roderick's eyes gleamed with something ancient as he continued. "There's a story, old as the hills, about a lion and a wolf who lived side by side in the same forest. The lion was king of the sunlit plains, proud and unyielding. The wolf was master of the shadows, swift and cunning. One day, a fire swept through the forest, threatening to consume everything. The wolf could outrun the flames, but the lion could not. The wolf could fight alone, but the lion needed help." He paused, then smiled faintly. "So the lion bowed to the wolf, not in defeat, but in trust. The wolf, in turn, learned to walk beside the lion, not behind or ahead, but beside. Together, they faced the fire and survived. Neither tamed the other by force. They tamed each other by need, respect, and the promise of loyalty." I nodded slowly. The thought sank deep. Noah wasn't just any wolf. He was my mate, my equal, my fiercest protector, and he carried his own battles inside him. "Taming," Roderick said, "is not about dominance. It is about harmony. The lion's strength is the wolf's calm. The wolf's cunning is the lion's courage. When one bends, the other holds steady. When one falters, the other carries." I looked up at the stars, scattered cold and bright overhead. "Remember," Roderick added softly, "a lion's roar commands the savannah, but it is the whisper between the leaves that keeps the night alive. To tame the wolf, the lion must learn when to roar and when to listen."
The silence wrapped around us again, heavy with meaning. I knew then that the path ahead would not be easy, but it would be ours to walk together. The next day, the Panther delegation arrived. General Askar stood tall next to Shankar, dressed in the fine silk robes of the Panther's Emberflang clan, deep emerald green that shimmered with every movement. His long black hair fell straight down to his waist, framing a face with full lips and eyes narrowed into sharp slits, giving him an air of quiet, dangerous authority. Noah greeted them at the gate, clasping Shankar on the shoulder as they walked inside. The Panther delegates moved with a silent grace, their robes flowing like liquid shadows as they stepped through the courtyard. The subtle scent of jasmine and sandalwood followed them, mixing with the faint metallic tang of the finely wrought jewelry they wore. Shankar gave Asterion and me a cool once-over before he steered his old friend over to the large table where the feast was being prepared and the drinks were being poured. "You okay?" Asterion eyed me. "You seem on edge." "Fine," I said, but I kept my gaze locked on Noah. "I don't trust the Panthers." "Even less than the foxes." Asterion laughed, the sound rumbling from deep in his chest. I am on edge, because Noah is with child." I whipped my head around to stare at Asterion, who was grinning fondly. "That obvious, eh?" "Yup, clocked that a mile away." He clasped my shoulder firmly. The bull stood almost a head taller than me, his gaze flicking to his mate, Elias, who stood off to the side with Orion and Zoran, talking quietly with the other Panther delegates. "I wish I could say it gets easier," Asterion said. "But it doesn't. 9 times out of 10. You're sweating bricks, thinking you're failing, and they blame you for almost everything, but the day you hold your pup in your arms, you become a better man." He turned to look back at me, pupils wide, a large molten ring around the iris. "Elias is expecting too." A laugh burst out of me. "You old dog!" I clapped him on the back. "Why didn't you say so?" Asterion blushed and shrugged. "He doesn't know, and I'm hoping he and Noah will figure it out at the same time." He snorted a laugh. "If you need anything, my friend, let me know." I smiled at him. "For many years, we've lived together in Velmora. Why did you never tell me of those deals with the tigers? I would have stopped them." Asterion looked away, shame crawling over his face. "Cassian, I am not your mate. I would never submit myself to you," he said firmly. "I deal with my problems my way." I nodded and backed off. The bull was proud, and I wouldn't demean him by stepping over him. "Hey," Noah touched my lower back. "Can we talk? I'd like to call a small council meeting before the foxes and leopards come. That way we're all in sync." I nodded, signaling for Cassian to stop mooning over Zoran and come here, while Jarek, General Askar, Shankar, and Asterion followed us into Noah's study. General Askar walked toward the large bay windows, his silk robe whispering across the floor, long black hair trailing like a curtain down his back. Up close, he was breathtaking, an otherworldly blend of elegance and power. From the side, his features bordered on androgynous, high cheekbones, sculpted jaw, full lips, a predator in silk. Beside him stood Shankar, slightly shorter, his short cropped black hair, neat, his arms folded with militant stiffness. His expression was unreadable, eyes flicking between Noah and Askar. There was history there. Noah and Shankar shared a closeness I couldn't place, and it made my teeth grit. "I know why you've called us here," General Askar said, voice calm but heavy with implication. but we cannot fight with you.
The breath caught in my throat. I turned to Asterion, eyes wide in disbelief. His jaw clenched, but Noah didn't even flinch.
I understand, he said.
Ascar turned, slowly, his eyes narrowing. Do you?
Yes, Noah replied. But as long as you understand that, with your refusal, all existing pacts are now null and void.
A flicker of anger passed over Ascar's face. You think you can bargain with that? Noah stepped forward. I can bargain with a lot more than that, and you know it.
Ascar's lips tightened. Careful, little wolf.
No, Noah said. You be careful. We both know the Emberfang clan is fracturing. You're drowning in debts, torn by internal war. Disease, famine, political infighting. Your people are eating themselves alive. You can't fight because you're too busy bleeding out.
Ascar's face twitched.
Didn't the Emperor strip your title? Didn't he exile you from your own city? You're not here because you want an alliance, Noah continued. You're here because you're hoping we'll beg, hoping we'll sweeten the deal to save you. But this isn't a rescue mission, General. This is survival. And if you're not fighting with us, you're dead weight.
The room went quiet.
Even I had to take a second breath, heart pounding, slowly realizing how good Noah was. Not just good, deadly in the way that mattered. He had exposed Ascar in front of everyone without lifting a finger. Ascar's jaw worked. Behind him, Shankar looked away.
If you're done posturing, Noah said, voice steady, we still have a war to prepare for. You can leave, walk out that door and return to your dying clan, or you can sit and negotiate like a man who's ready to survive.
Ascar didn't move, not yet, but his silence said everything. And I was in awe. They gathered around the table. The map of the continent stretched between us. Little markers lined in neat rows. General Ascar stood with his arms crossed, impassive. Asterion leaned on his fists, studying the terrain. Shankar and Eren flanked Noah, murmuring quietly. Zoran traced a line along the rivers, while Elias scribbled notes. We strike here, Noah said, tapping the eastern flank with 2 fingers. The tigers are weakest here. Spread thin, no reinforcements for miles. If we move quickly, we break their spine before the rest of the army can form up. He looked up, eyes alive with fire. I will lead the charge against Vindictus.
My stomach twisted.
The world felt like it was shrinking, pressing in from every angle. I couldn't breathe. Roderick's voice echoed in my head. Protect Noah from himself. I cleared my throat. No! Everything stopped.
All eyes turned to me, but I did not look at them. I kept my gaze on Noah.
He blinked once. What? I said no, I replied, firmer now. Someone else will lead the charge. Noah's face went still. Too still. His jaw flexed. And who do you suggest lead it? He asked softly. You. I swallowed. Yes, the Lion Clan. Solar Flare will lead the assault against the tigers.
Noah was already shaking his head before the words had fully left my mouth. Never. I will not allow it. This isn't a request, I said quietly. You don't get to make that decision for me, Noah snapped, stepping forward, fury igniting in his eyes. I am the battle commander of the noble wolf pack. My soldiers, my strategies, my responsibility. I will not sit on the sidelines like some glass doll.
You're not a doll, I said, voice low but steady. You're carrying my child. Silence. Pure, stunned silence.
Noah's expression faltered for a single heartbeat, barely perceptible. But I saw it. Then the wall slammed back into place, hard and cold. "And I will not be caged because of it," he said. "This isn't about control," I said. "It's about survival. You want to win the war, and I want to keep the father of my pup alive to see it. You think I'm doing this to steal your thunder?" "I think," Noah said slowly, "you're trying to make me into something I'm not."
"I think," I replied, "you're trying to prove something that no one is asking you to."
Asterion let out a low breath. Zoran shifted uncomfortably. Erin murmured something to Shankar, and General Askar watched us both with unreadable interest. Noah didn't respond. Not yet. But I could see it building in him. The storm behind his eyes.
And still, I held his gaze.
Are you forcing me?" Noah asked. His breath so strained it made my heart crack open. I hated the look in his eyes, like he'd never forgive me if I did. "Yes," I said quietly, my chest aching, voice barely steady. "As your alpha, I command you."
There it was. The words hung between us like a guillotine.
Noah reeled back like I'd struck him. His jaw clenched, his entire body going rigid. Fury, betrayal, and something even deeper, hurt, flashed through his eyes. His hands balled into fists at his sides.
"You said you'd never do that," he whispered, his voice fraying at the edges. "You promised."
"I know," I breathed. "And if there were any other way, God's Noah, I would take it. But this isn't just about us anymore. If you go into battle like this and something happens to you—" I couldn't finish the sentence. My voice broke. Noah stepped back, shaking his head. "You don't trust me. You never did." "That's not true!"
I surged forward, but he held up a hand, and I stopped in my tracks.
"You think I'm reckless, unstable, too driven by pride." His throat bobbed as he swallowed hard. "But I'm not weak." "I never said you were weak." My voice dropped. "But you're not invincible either."
For a moment, no one spoke. The others in the room stayed silent, the tension like a taut wire ready to snap. Asterion looked like he wanted to intervene but knew better. Elias had frozen mid-note. General Askar watched with thinly veiled curiosity. Noah turned his back on all of us, staring out the window. His shoulders rose and fell, breath shallow. I could see it. The battle warring inside him. Not the one against Vindictus, but the one against himself. Against me. When he finally spoke, it was quiet. Bitter. "Then I hope you win your war, Alpha." And with that, he walked out of the room. The door clicked softly behind him. And just like that, I had won. But God's help me. It felt like I'd lost everything.
Chapter 9. Noah. The second I closed the door, a wave of nausea came over me and I rushed to the bathroom, puking my guts out. Pregnant. God, no wonder I felt so off. Cassian had known. They all knew and thought it was funny. I retched and retched, feeling so sick. Warm hands glided over my forehead, and I sighed into the touch, my body feverish against my mate's. Cassian pressed a kiss to my cheek. "Wait here," he whispered, and then I felt a cool cloth against my forehead. I wanted to knock his hand away. I almost did, but bile was clawing up my throat again, and I leaned over the toilet bowl to throw up more. It felt like hours before I was finally done. Cassian stayed pressed up behind me, his scent so soothing I thought I might collapse. But when it was over, I shoved him off, standing on shaking legs. My eyes were wet with tears, my throat aching as I used the wall to steady myself. "Get out," I whispered. "Noah!" "Get the hell out," I hissed, my voice hoarse. "I didn't mean to hurt you." "Yet you did." I choked back the words and watched him leave, wishing he could stay. I pressed my forehead against the tiled wall, breathing hard. My hand automatically flew to my stomach and I felt it. The flutter, the pulse. There was something there. Life. I was with child. The first alpha-born pup seen in almost 100 years. Mina should have been the one. It should have been her. Except it was me. I stepped outside and was both saddened and relieved that Cassian wasn't there. Jarek was waiting for me with a healer nearby. "You need rest." "I'll rest later." I waved Jarek off. "I need to speak with General Askar and—" "Cassian has already dealt with them," Jarek replied. "This way, Alpha." I stared at him in shock. The audacity. Rage prickled down my spine and I was ready to spit fire, but my stomach roiled and I felt like I was going to be sick again. I groaned, staggering a little, and Jarek caught my elbow. I wrenched free, glaring at him, and then followed the healer back to my room, slamming the door shut behind me. "Pregnant. Rest, Alpha," the healer said gently. She was an old wolf mage named Diana. "Let me check you over, and the pup." I relented, my nerves getting the best of me as I sat on the bed for the examination. Diana's hands were warm and practiced as she pressed them gently over my abdomen, murmuring under her breath in a tongue older than the packs themselves. I kept my eyes fixed on the ceiling, willing myself not to cry again. I was tired, bone deep, soul-worn tired. "Breathe," she said softly, and I did. Her fingers glowed faintly as she whispered another spell, then exhaled with a satisfied hum. "Everything's fine," she confirmed, sitting back on her heels. "The pup is strong. So are you." I let out a shaky breath, the tension easing just a little. "But," she continued, "you're still early. Very early. That means you need to be careful, Alpha. This pregnancy is rare. Dangerous even. And you're carrying it alone." "I'm not alone," I muttered, but the words felt thin, cracked at the edges. "You need to rest. Truly rest," she said, reaching for a vial in her pouch and placing it on the nightstand. "Keep your stress levels low. No strategy meetings, no more fighting with your mate, and no charging into war councils." I scoffed lightly, but she fixed me with a look that froze me in place. "This isn't a suggestion," Diana said, her voice like gravel and steel. "You need to begin nesting. Let your body prepare. Let your instincts guide you. And you must stay close to your mate. Starting now." I began, but she raised a hand. "I've seen it before. Alphas who carry. They struggle the most when they try to do everything alone. You may not want to rely on him, but you need him. This pup needs him." Her voice softened. "Your body is already changing, and if you keep fighting it, you'll collapse." I clenched my jaw, eyes burning. Nesting. Staying close to Cassian. Gods, I wasn't ready. But the flutter in my belly reminded me it wasn't about readiness. It was about survival. "I'll try," I said quietly. "No," Diana corrected gently. "You'll do." She stood, gathering her things with the calm assurance of someone who'd done this too many times to waste words. "Rest now. And when you're ready, call him back." She gave me one final look, kind but firm. "Your pup already knows his scent. Don't deny yourself the comfort of your mate." Then she was gone, leaving me alone in the silence. My hand curled protectively around my belly. The next few days were hell. I was sick as a dog, dry heaving at all hours, cursing Cassian's name like it was a goddamn prayer. He was always almost there, his scent lingering on my sheets, the press of his warmth curling around me at night, but like mist he slipped through my fingers by morning. I'd roll over expecting him, only to meet cold air and the crushing disappointment that came with it. My nest had become an abomination of pillows, blankets, 2 of Cassian's shirts, which I'd never admit to stealing, and a weird fuzzy thing Diana said would help regulate my scent. Honestly, it looked like a dead sheep and I loved it. I ate like a pig. No, worse. Like a starving boar who'd just discovered pudding. And every bite was a gamble. Would I enjoy it? Or would it come rocketing back up with the force of an angry goddamned volcano? Who knew? Surprise. It took 2 days before I finally felt human enough to leave my room. And even then I stepped into the hall with all the enthusiasm of a condemned man approaching the gallows. The moment I entered the council chamber, every head turned. And they all knew. Roderick had the audacity to snicker. "You son of a bitch," I hissed, narrowing my eyes at him and the other elderman. "Sorry, Alpha," Roderick chuckled, utterly unapologetic. "You just looked so cute trying to figure it out, like a feral squirrel rearranging acorns. I should execute all of you." "Wouldn't be the first time you threatened that," one of them mumbled. "Don't tempt me. I'm hormonal and I have a pack of throwing knives." That shut them up, but the laughter didn't quite die. Jerks. My smirk faded, though, the second I saw him. Cassian. Standing at the table with the others, his head bent low over war maps, his broad shoulders tense, voice low and commanding. He looked powerful, respected, in control, my mate, my alpha. But I wasn't next to him. I wasn't part of this war anymore. My heart twisted, and then his gaze caught mine. And I stormed out before he could say a word. The crisp air outside felt like ice in my lungs. I needed it. I needed space. I walked fast, past the rows of council chambers, past the kitchens, past the lower camp where wolves mingled with the herd and bulls. Kids shifted mid-leap, tackling each other in bursts of fur and laughter. Elders sat in patches of sun, sipping tea and gossiping. And under the willow tree, looking faintly ill and oddly peaceful, was Elias. He didn't notice me at first, one hand pressed to his belly like he was holding something in. His skin had a sheen to it, his lips pale. But it wasn't the sick look that pulled me toward him. It was the expression on his face, soft, scared, and somehow knowing. I crossed the grass without thinking, stopping just in front of him. Elias's scent hit me like a memory, warm milk steeped in lavender and crushed pine needles, and my stomach turned with recognition. He was pregnant too. Asterion was expecting. "Alpha," he bowed, but looked like he'd keel over at any second. "You look like I feel," I said dryly. Elias glanced at me and gave a weak laugh. "You mean like I'd been run over by a herd of moose?" "Exactly." He blinked, then sighed, letting his head fall back against the tree. "The puking's fun, right?" "Delightful," I muttered, crossing my arms. 10 out of 10. Highly recommend." He gave a weak smile. "You nesting yet?" "Shut up." We sat in silence for a moment, the wind rustling the leaves overhead. I stared at the pack mingling in the field. I could hear Cassian's voice in my head, feel his warmth still wrapped around my spine. I just didn't know how long I could take being next to him, without being with him. Elias glanced sideways at me. "You still love him?" I never stopped. My voice cracked a little. "Then maybe it's time to stop being angry he tried to protect you," Elias said. "Even if he did it in the worst way possible." I scoffed. "You're really bad at this comforting thing." "I'm not trying to comfort you," Elias replied. "I'm trying to kick your ass into fixing it before you explode." Fair. And for the first time in days, I felt something other than nausea curling in my chest. Hope. Stubborn, stupid hope. "We'll be due around the same time," Elias continued. "But if you're like me and you plan to use your mind instead of your body, you can still fight with everything in you." Elias was looking at Micah, Orion's baby girl, as she laughed. "I know I will." He patted my arm and walked off. It was the first time I ever spoke with the Omega, and I knew instantly Asterion chose the perfect mate. Not because Elias was soft, but because he wasn't. There was a quiet power to him, the kind forged not on battlefields but in silent moments like this. Resolute, steady, brave in a way that didn't scream, but stood its ground. I'd underestimated him, and maybe I'd underestimated myself too. If Elias could carry this weight, this child, this war, and still speak of fighting with that quiet fire in his voice, then maybe I could stop crumbling and start standing again. Maybe I didn't need to lead the charge to matter. Maybe protecting the future meant stepping back just for now. Can we talk? I blinked, eyes sticky with sleep as Cassian's face swam into view. I must have dozed off again next to the fire, an old book the healer Diana gave me still open on my chest. He chuckled and handed me a handkerchief. I groaned, catching the string of drool clinging to my bottom lip. Ugh, thanks. Real dignified moment for an alpha, huh? Cassian grinned. Honestly? Kind of adorable. Shut up, I muttered, wiping my mouth. What is it? Something wrong? No, he said, but there was a heaviness in his eyes as he stared into mine. How are you feeling? Like I got run over by 2 dumpster trucks, and I'm pretty sure a third one's reversing with a vengeance, I muttered, stretching my sore limbs. He moved to touch my arm, but I squirmed away instinctively. Noah! What? I snapped, sharper than I meant. I heard everything in the council meeting, Cassian. There's nothing left to say. Do you love me? The words hit me like a slap made of feathers. Soft, unexpected, but somehow bruising all the same. What? I sputtered, my entire face going hot, tongue suddenly dry like sandpaper. Love. When had love ever come into the mix? We were mates for Christ's sake. How could there be... What the hell was he even talking about? This wasn't a love match. Oh, Cassian breathed, and I felt like someone had sucker-punched me right in the ribs. He looked up at me, eyes shining with something I didn't want to name. I assumed we would... What? Fall in love with each other? I scoffed, harsher than I meant, but it was out before I could stop it. Cassian recoiled as if I'd struck him across the face. My heart pounded against my ribs. Loud, unrelenting. How had we gotten so off-kilter? Love? This was an arranged bonding, an arranged mating. We were lucky we even liked each other. But love? I hadn't thought of it. And now, I was carrying his pup. His. And Cassian was looking at me like I was his whole damn universe, like he'd already decided he loved me, like he had been waiting for me to say it back. Oh, crap. Cassian, I said gently, I care for you. A lot. Probably more than I ever should. But we're too different. You're a lion shifter and I'll always be a wolf. Your place is with your pride and mine is with the pack. And I was freaking out. My entire body felt feverish and hot. Why was this driving me crazy? I looked into his yellow eyes, saw the slump in his shoulders, and then he was pulling away from me, drawing back, and I did nothing to stop him. I understand, he said, standing and keeping his distance. Call me if you need anything. Cassian, I'm sorry. It's fine. I think I've always known, he said sadly, then walked out the door. I slumped into the chair, my face burning and tears stinging my eyes. Did I love Cassian? I didn't know. But why did it feel like yes? Why was the answer screaming at me plain as day? And worst of all, why didn't I tell him? Cassian spent the night with his brother and I felt like crap. The next morning, when I saw him at the council meeting, he barely looked at me, and somehow that made it worse. Did I love Cassian? I hated when he was away from me. I missed his bear hugs and the way he always watched over me like I might break. I missed the thing he did with his tongue that had my toes curling in pleasure. Alpha? Huh? I jumped, blinking as Jarek stepped up beside me. He looked upset, my brows furrowed, wondering what I'd missed. Can you? He paused, glancing at Orion, who stood in the great hall with us. We were all gathered to greet the Fox and Leopard clans arriving today. Give me your answer. 4. Whether or not I have your blessing with Orion. I closed my eyes. Jarek, this isn't really the time. I love him, Jarek said firmly. I want to be his mate. What does Asterion have to say? He told me to ask you. I grit my teeth. Typical Asterion. Then my answer is no. Jarek looked crushed, completely, utterly crushed. And damn it, I hated being the bearer of bad news. But Asterion should have known I'd say no. Orion wasn't a wolf. He was a bull. He belonged to Asterion. Christ, he just had Asterion's child. The herd was different. They bred their calves. Why would Jarek chain himself to a life like that? He'd father no children, and Orion would always be bound to Asterion. How did he think this would end? With him on the sidelines while Orion popped out baby after baby with his alpha. Sure, the herd took lovers, but the herd bonded with their alpha. They craved them. I'm sorry, Jarek. You're not sorry, Jarek snapped, his voice loud enough to make several heads turn. Keep your voice down, I hissed. Or what? He barked. Jesus, I've served you for years, stood beside you, bled beside you, and you can't grant me this one thing. Calm down, I said. I won't! Jarek's eyes sparked. You don't get to silence me now. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Cassian bristle, ready to intervene, but I held up a hand to stop him. You're upset, I get it, but as your alpha. Are you my alpha? Because it sure as hell doesn't feel like it anymore. My eyes narrowed. What did you just say? It's not us versus them, Jarek roared. It's not the pack versus the rest of them. We're all here to fight Vindictus. We're allies, and you still act like the wolves sit above everyone else. Why? We are the noble wolf pack. Our way of life has been threatened. Look around you, Noah, he screamed. There is no noble wolf pack anymore. We've integrated, we've changed, we've evolved. The old ways, they're sacred, sure, but they're dying. You're clinging to the ashes of a burned-out legacy, and for what? Pride? Hey! Cassian barked, stepping between us. His voice dropped like thunder. Don't you ever speak to your alpha like that again. Take a freaking walk before I lose my patience. Jarek's face crumpled, and he looked around to see everyone staring at him. Shame crept across his expression. Forgive me, Alpha, he muttered. He bowed low and walked away, stiff-backed and broken. I stood there, breathless with rage. Humiliation crawled over my skin, burning like a rash. I could still feel every pair of eyes on me, my right-hand man, my most loyal companion. Are you okay? Cassian touched my arm gently. Your heart's beating too fast. I swallowed. I'll lie down for a bit. I'll come with you, he offered quietly. No, please. Greet the foxes, I said. I'm okay. He nodded slowly, and I turned and walked out, my shoulders tight and my heart heavier than ever. I woke to cool hands touching my forehead, and I groaned when Cassian's face came into view. Sorry, he muttered. I'll leave you. Stay. I reached for his hand, holding on to it. The bond zinged between us. Please. Cassian sat back down at the edge of the bed. How are you feeling? Exhausted, I breathed, and Cassian nodded. We lapsed into an awkward silence. How's Jarek? He feels awful, but I'm sure he'll come around. Cassian regarded me closely. Look, far be it from me to question your decisions, but why did you refuse him? Cassian, I'm really not in the mood for this. Humour me, he said, taking my hand and intertwining our fingers. I felt my entire body relax, and I snorted a laugh. Fine. They aren't like us. We're wolves. They're bulls. One day Jarek will want his own pups, his own life. Orion can't give that to him. Have you spoken to Orion? I balked. What? Have you spoken to Orion? Cassian said slowly, like I was some skittish dog. No. Why would I need to speak with him? Because it might not be what you think, Cassian replied. I've known Asterion for over 500 years. Orion and Zorin have never left his side. But that was before Elias. He loves them, yes, but he loves Elias more. Elias is his Matronis. The herd needs their alpha, sure. But Asterion is only one alpha. He encourages them to look elsewhere. I know that, I snapped. I'm not an idiot. Never said you were, Cassian replied gently. I just think maybe instead of seeing it as us versus them, you could start seeing it as people. And people can fall in love, regardless of whether they can have pups or not. I sat back, stunned into silence. I hated how his words struck a chord with me, because he was right. I had always seen things as wolves versus the other clans. Even with Cassian, I'd kept him at arm's length, terrified that if I gave in, I'd lose the identity of the noble wolf pack entirely. I am an idiot, aren't I? I sighed. Cassian laughed. You're not. You're a good alpha, Noah. One of the best I've ever seen. But maybe try leading more from here. He pointed to my chest. Instead of here. He tapped my forehead. We stared into each other's eyes, and I wanted so badly to kiss him, to close the distance between us. But then he was getting up, clearing his throat. Sorry, I'll let you get some rest. Wait, Cassian. We can talk tomorrow. And then he was gone, leaving me alone with my thoughts, and the ache of his absence. The grand hall smelled of jasmine and fresh pine, the wide doors flung open as 2 new delegations poured in. The leopard clan of Solari were elegance personified, tall, lean-bodied shifters with golden-hued skin and slitted amber eyes that sparkled like firelight. They moved like liquid silk, each step purposeful, each gesture calculated. The males wore long embroidered robes with gold-threaded vines that shimmered as they walked. The females were no less formidable, clad in structured armor stitched with sapphire beads, their hair adorned with obsidian pins and bone combs. Even their smirks looked expensive. Trailing just behind them, the fox clan from Aruoki were smaller, with quick feet, twitching ears, and expressions that suggested they already knew your secrets and planned to sell them for sport. Their coats were patchy bronze and cream, their garments layered in asymmetrical jackets and belts with hidden daggers. One fox yawned so wide I saw his molars gleam like pearls. Another gave me finger guns. And I wasn't paying attention to any of it. Because Cassian stood across the room, talking with Asterion, arms crossed over that muscular chest like a deity sculpted from sin and salt. His black shirt was pulled tight across his shoulders, and his trousers. God. Those pants. They clung to him like they'd been painted on. Every time he shifted his weight, the fabric cupped his arse like it had a license. Did I love him or not? Did I love him or not? Did I... Ugh! Noah! My brain screeched like a rusted door hinge. I blinked rapidly, turning to see a very amused leopard shifter staring up at me. Yes, right, I barked, far too loud. Clan Varen, of course. Welcome, very decorative. The head of the leopard clan arched a single brow. We are honored, Alpha Noah, he said in a voice that purred with honey and claws. Great. Wonderful. Love your beads. The fox standing beside him snorted, clearly delighted. I was definitely losing grip. Just as the applause faded, and my heart remembered how to beat at a non-lethal pace, Jarek approached me, holding out a warm clay mug. Honey milk, he said, his voice softer than I expected. You look like you could use some. I took it with a grateful nod, the sweet scent already soothing my nerves. "Thanks," I muttered, taking a sip. It was creamy and floral, the kind of comfort I didn't know I needed until it hit my chest like a warm hug. Jarek stood quietly beside me, not pushing, not pressing, just waiting. I sighed, lowering the mug. "Listen, about earlier. I should have taken the time to get to know Orion. I let my own prejudices get in the way." Jarek blinked, clearly caught off guard by the apology. "Noah, I'm not finished," I said, holding up a finger. "He's not a wolf. That's true. But that doesn't mean he doesn't deserve a chance. You deserve a chance. So here's what I'm thinking." Jarek straightened like I'd just handed him a sword. "A trial run," I said, locking eyes with him. "A moon cycle. Orion integrates with the pack, joins runs, eats with us, spends time with the others. If there are no major clashes, no stampedes." I gave him a wry look. "I'll consider blessing a formal bond between you two." Jarek's mouth fell open. "Wait, seriously?" "Don't make me regret it." He laughed, full and bright, the tension between us cracking like old ice. "You won't. Thank you, Alpha. I mean it." "I know you do." I clapped him on the shoulder. "Just don't make me officiate anything in the middle of a heat cycle. I'll throw myself into the river." "No promises," he smirked, already walking off, clearly delighted. I turned just in time to catch Cassian watching me, arms crossed, a grin tugging at his lips. "What?" I called out. He shrugged. "I'm just wondering what else you're going to confess before lunch." "Shut up," I muttered into my mug, but I was smiling too. Cassian's deep laugh floated across the room and I found myself staring again, caught in the orbit of that smile, the way he leaned slightly toward Asterion when he talked, always so in control. My heart thudded like a war drum. My stomach flipped. My palms were sweating. I couldn't hold it in. "Cassian!" I shouted, interrupting 3 conversations and maybe a minor treaty. He turned, startled. Everyone turned, startled. "I love you, you idiot!" The Fox clan immediately broke into applause. One actually wiped a tear from his eye and whispered, "Finally." Cassian blinked, then broke into the softest, most relieved smile I'd ever seen. "It took you long enough," he said, and I practically melted into the floor. Clan Varen gave a slow clap, followed by a murmured, "Drama and sincerity. We approve." I coughed, straightened my spine and cleared my throat. "Right. Anyway, welcome to our territory. Tea?" Cassian beamed at me and mouthed, "I love you too." Just as the honey milk reached my lips again, the doors to the hall burst open with a bang. A scout skidded inside, panting hard, dirt smeared across his cheeks and terror etched into every line of his face. "The tigers!" he gasped. "They're coming!" The mug slipped from my hand and shattered against the floor. Every head turned. Every heart seemed to skip a beat. We surged into motion, the council hall erupting into a storm of movement. Chairs scraped, weapons were drawn. I bolted for the entrance, fear slamming into my chest like a hammer. The boundaries were protected, fortified with spells, sentries, natural traps. How the hell had Vindictus breached them already? I was halfway down the steps when a strong arm wrapped around my waist, yanking me back. "Wait!" Cassian hissed into my ear, holding me flush against his chest. Then I saw it. Through the trees, just beyond the veil of mist, 2 glowing red eyes blinked into existence. The forest went deathly still. A snarl ripped from Cassian's throat, a brutal primal sound that sent the rest of the warriors bristling into formation. Blades drawn, claws ready. Every alpha in the clearing moved as one. But what I saw made my stomach twist. It wasn't what I expected. The tiger stepped forward, and it wasn't a fierce monster or a bloodthirsty beast. It was a shell, a skeleton draped in fur. The stripes across his body were barely visible under the layers of grime and blood. His ribs jutted out like the teeth of a bear trap, every bone. Grotesque. His skin clung to him like wet parchment, thin and papery, stretched too tight. His legs bowed unnaturally, his claws worn down to the quick. More shapes spilled from the trees, emaciated tigers, their bodies grotesquely twisted. One had a missing eye. Another limped on a broken leg that had healed wrong, the bone bulging out at a jagged angle. One of them, God's, dragged his back legs behind him like dead weight, leaving two parallel lines in the dirt. They weren't here to fight. They were barely alive. "Noah!" the lead tiger rasped, collapsing to his knees. His voice was a shattered thing, dry as cracked leaves. "I beg you, save my mate." Only then did I see it. Behind him, under a ragged scrap of fur-lined cloth, was a cot. A crude thing pieced together from sticks and old wool. And on it lay a tiger shifter, curled tightly into a ball, unmoving. He was even worse, barely breathing. His body was nothing but skin and bones, sunken eyes lost in the hollows of his face. His fur had thinned in places, revealing bruised, blistered skin. His tail was curled around himself like a shield, as if trying to hide from death itself. What happened to you?" The tiger lifted his head, his once mighty frame trembling like dry leaves in the wind. His eyes met mine, haunted, hollow, and filled with something I never expected from the name that haunted our borders. Regret. "I am Vindictus," he rasped, blood at the corner of his mouth. "And I no longer have the strength to be your enemy." His eyes drifted to the dying shifter on the cot. "Please, save my mate." Then he collapsed at my feet, nothing but bones, fur, and the last shreds of pride. End part 2.